The emergence of Rabindranath Tagore into the world scene and English literature coincides with the publication of the English version of Geetanjali for the first time in November 1912. In November 1913, he was awarded the Nobel Prize by Swedish Academy, and this gave him a place among the greatest men of letters in the modern world. He won universal recognition through the monumental literary achievement of Geetanjali. An appreciation of Rabindranath's poetic genius in the West for a long time is based upon the assumption that Geetanjali is the crowning glory of his life, but the truth that Geetanjali does not mark the summit as Rabindranath's poetic career, it was just the beginning. The poems, that is the Geetanjali, are song offerings. Geet means song and Anjali means offerings, were written to be sung, but they sang themselves. The book has spoken to countless hearts and has been a revelation of what they felt and experienced and cannot be ever forgotten. Edward Thompson says that, quote, "It brings us very close to a religious experience which is universal yet intensely individual, an experience which is one with the writer's life, no alien dress but the natural growth of his days." Further, he goes on to say that his poems have led him to find God. His sorrows and failures have shown him to God. His restlessness, of which the words speak, is in this book deepening to minor tone. His anxiety to mix with the simple life of men, wherever he can find it at its fullest, is also here. Songs of Geetanjali are mainly very close to the personal connection between poet and the eternal, as a lover and beloved, wife and husband, servant and master, friend and friend, as if the poet was trying to approach reality in a personal way through personal relationships. They are songs constructing out of themselves, of their wondrous world in which dawns and eves add languorous means, vagrant tint as the skies and glorious horizons, flowers and birds, beggar maids, pilgrims and messengers, with tiding, man and nature jostle with one another and unite at a point in the inner heart of the poet and raise these persons of love and longings forever far and yet ever near, master of the whole. Geetanjali can be called a confluence of romanticism, mysticism, and humanism. The deep subjective tone or note characterizing romantic poetry sounds through his songs and poems, giving them the necessary emotional content without which any religious poetry fails to make an impact. We find in the poems of Tagore the nature worship of Wordsworth, the reformist fervour of Shelley, the sensual verbal felicity of Keats, and the consummate artistry of Tennyson. Tagore's poems are remarkable for their simplicity and spontaneity, brilliant imagery, and striking originality. Tagore's Geetanjali spreads his fame across the horizon of Western life like a rainbow. As Tagore approached the age of 40, life brought him many sorrows, and this reflected itself in some of the poems of that period. The attitude of the world becomes more profound. He begins to find God, a comrade who soothes him by his healing grace. There is a calm and joyous acceptance of death as the messenger of going. While on one hand his poems persistently proclaim that life is meant to be lived, on the other he is always conscious of the deeper meaning of life. The communions of man with God, a new understanding of man's relation to the world, are conveyed to us in a masterly manner which are intensely mystic. His religious poetry, as found in the Geetanjali, breathes a noble devotion. As Tagore himself interprets it, the religious man has to take a share of the world's burden and not to try to run away from the world. Further, we see the poet communing with the divine essence of life in the spirit of comrade. Nature forming the background for human joys and sorrows. His joyous acceptance of death as a gateway to a fuller life links Tagore again with the greatest mystic poets. After the Geetanjali was published, there was some discussion on the supposed influence of Christianity on Tagore's work. Thompson opines that direct influence was very slight and his attitude towards Christian doctrine was hardly friendly. Tagore's sympathy for all forms of life was real and rich. God and religion, according to him, got betrothed to each other long before he ever became aware of the existence in himself. But there is unmistakable message in his works. The human body is considered the soul, and the human soul is the temple of God. The best pieces bring enlightenment and heighten our sensibility and awaken men to the sheer delight of existence. Geetanjali shares richly the Renaissance spirit. All devotional songs are said to be sung. The various moods in which Tagore is visualizing God are vividly seen. God, with the golden touch of his feet, has kindled the light of reason and love in mankind. The light of God's music illumines the world. The songs of Geetanjali, thus, are songs mainly of the closest personal connection between the poet and the eternal, as if the poet was trying to approach reality in a personal way through personal relationships. Therefore, we conclude that Geetanjali is a work of therefore we can say, in the words of Yeats, that Geetanjali is a work of supreme culture and justly regarded the song as much the growth of the common soil as the grass and the rushes. Thank you.